With this is the Airbus A380, a very nice airplane. But in actual fact, Airbus have only sold 234 of them. That's not a lot, really. And half of them have gone to one airline, Emirates. If it wasn't for Emirates, this aircraft would be a complete disaster, financially and otherwise. Fact is, most airlines are going for equipment like this. This is the Airbus A350, long-range, smaller aircraft. You're probably familiar with this one, the Dreamliner, which flew a few months ago. It's now started to reach the market. Boeing have sold, with orders and options, probably about 1,000 of these. The key difference with this type of equipment is it has, on average, around about 260 seats. So about the same size as the 767. Half the size of the 747. So as you start to retire your bigger fleets, like your 747, you're going to downgrade to smaller equipment. What that means is you're going to have to increase the frequency to carry the same amount of capacity to destinations. So if you've got a situation like Sydney Airport, for example, and you've heard Alwyn-Jones recently talking about this, where we're already at capacity, slots are at a peak. You know, you can't get any slot times at peak times. How are you going to manage if you've got to increase capacity by increasing frequency? It's a real issue. So if we can't grow because of situations like this, then what airlines are going to do is they're going to put all their volume into key markets that have this growth and this opportunity. It's a significant issue for the future. Right now, Asia, that's to, from, and within, represents about 34% of the entire global aviation market. By 2029, nearly half the world's aviation traffic will be in our region. Half the world's flights, again, right here, right where we are. Opportunity, absolutely. So to match this, or to cope with this, airlines are going to have to purchase about 31,000 new aircraft over this period. Not only that, you're going to have over 300,000 pilots trained and more than 600,000 engineers. So this is a serious growth industry. The majority of aircraft sales are going to be single-aisle aircraft, things like the 737 and the A320. So about 70%. Next one, twin-aisle aircraft, similar to the ones I've just shown you, like the Dreamliner, the A350. But from a market value, those two types of equipment represent more than 90% of the entire aircraft sales for the future. Larger aircraft, like the A380, that's 320 seats plus, only represents about 2% of the market. Don't get me wrong, Boeing looked at this. They looked at it and thought, okay, we're going to build a big aircraft, a huge aircraft. We're going to capture this market. But when they did the numbers, they pulled out. But this is what they were going to develop. So I'm not making this up. The Boeing 797. It's a 1,000-seat passenger aircraft. It had a blended wing design for efficiency, which was going to be developed by Boeing and NASA. It would have a wingspan of 265 feet. It would fit, however, into the created terminals and air bridges for the A380. It would be able to fly about 9,000 nautical miles and travel at about 650 miles an hour. And it looked like that. It's like Thunderbirds, isn't it? I'm not joking, these were the promo shots. So they seriously looked at this, did their designs, etc., looked at the future market and said, nah, I'm not going to do that. What they've done is they've taken their 747 model, they've increased the fuselage slightly, they've put new engines on it, reconfigured the cockpit, and that's what's going to fly for their long-range or volume equipment in the future. What we see is that our region is going to exceed traffic growth for the future. And I've just said that the global traffic growth is growing up 5.5%. In our region, it's going to grow at 7.1%. Within China, it's going to grow at 7.9%, nearly 8%. And don't forget, there was 2.3 billion trips taken in China domestically last year. 2.3 billion. Quite phenomenal. So I can guarantee that China Southern, who bought the A380, are not going to use them internationally. They're going to get about 1 million people on board. Every aircraft will fly them into Shanghai and Guangzhou, guaranteed. Because again, they've got slot issues. Peak times, they can't get equipment in. So these are going to become cattle trucks for them. The other region that's going to grow is Middle East to Asia Pacific. So now you can start to understand why you're seeing these large orders from the likes of Emirates. Because as the Middle East starts to emerge at a very rapid rate, and they bring in employees from the Indian continent, from Indonesia, etc., they're going to be traveling or flying huge volumes of people in and out of this region. It is speculated that part of those 90 A380s that they've ordered will become a low-cost airline. Just think about that. an aircraft that has the capacity of a minimum 550 seats on an LCC model. Should be quite interesting. So what we're seeing with all this growth is airlines are looking to do business in a different way. And of course, low-cost carriers such as this is one way to look at it. This is a particular cheap airline. It's actually a school in Africa, I think. I thought it was a pretty good show. But in a very rapid time, we've become familiar with airlines like this, Tiger, AirAsia, Jetstar, etc. They're familiar in our skies now. A few years ago, never even heard of them, but now they're dominant players. This was the route network in 2003 in Asia for low-cost carriers, and the first low-cost carrier flew in June of that year. That was AirAsia, and I'm going to talk about AirAsia in a minute. What they did is they started to change the way people think. This was one of their ads a few years ago, Singapore to Bangkok, 49 cents. Now, if you wanted to go Singapore to Bangkok cheaply at this period, you need to catch a bus, right? And it would take over 24 hours, it would cost you about 160 US dollars, and it'd be a bloody nightmare. The average price now to fly between Singapore and Bangkok is about $40 plus tax. It's nothing. So it's changed the way people think. Now we can do this kind of stuff. It's not just leisure, it's SMEs, it's business. It's starting to drive growth and economic growth through these new models. They counter the cheap fares, of course, by ancillary revenue. This has become a familiar thing when you fly on these LCCs around Asia. Selling advertising space on board is just one example. Selling the whole fuselage is another. Why not? It's an advertising billboard. The other thing that airlines have done is innovate. And this is something we need to be aware of. This is Nokia of Thailand. You can buy your ticket at the ATM. You can buy it when you pay your mobile phone, or your mobile phone bill, and you can buy it at any 7-Eleven store. There's not a travel agent in sight. I'm not advocating this. What I'm saying is it's changed the way people think. It's changing purchasing habits. And we need to be on top of that and need to understand that, because these are our future customers. So within 6 years, on the low-cost carrier model, this is how it looked. So in that short time, it had grown massively. And of course, at this stage, there's no deregulation, there's no air liberalisation. So they're going head-to-head with legacy carriers. And I'm going to talk about air liberalisation in a minute. A lot of this growth has been fueled by AirAsia. And this airline has transformed the way aviation is done in the Asian market. Let's have a look at it. It was purchased by Tony Fernandez in December 2001. He bought the airline for £1, around 40 cents. What he got for his money was 2 737 aircraft and $11 million in debt. He jumped on planes, went to the UK, he spoke to Ryanair, he spoke to carriers in the United States, and he learned and understood how to develop an LCC. He flew his first schedule in June of that year, as I just said, 2003. By 2008, 5 years later, he had 166 routes. The current fleet size is 56, but he's got over 200 aircraft on order just for the Malaysian-based airline. But they now consist of 6 airlines. Here's his 6 airlines. He's got an airline in Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, his long-haul operation at AirAsia X, Philippines, and Japan. Strategic? Absolutely, and you'll see why a little later on. What they do is they work with destinations and airports. So they will not go into any market unless they get support from the destination and the airport financially, or incentivized. They have 3 core pillars to build their business on. 1 is leisure, 2 is VFR, and the 3rd one is students. They go after price-sensitive markets. This is their core business. Part of this is your core business. So is there a fit? Is there a natural fit with what they do to what we want to do? Absolutely. They're very smart in the way they market. This here was an advert that was only a few weeks ago. It was the Malaysian Airlines, who they partner now. They've actually taken over a large share of the domestic route network of Malaysian Airlines. This one, 25 reasons to fly truly Malaysian Airlines. Within 24 hours, they had this out. You don't need 25 reasons, just one. 99-cent fare. It changes and captures the imagination of people, and they react very, very quickly. They also have a push approach. They don't wait for people to say, yeah, okay, that's good, we'll do it now. They have smart marketing like this. Again, captures the imagination. It's fun, and don't forget it. Alright? Their route network then is now the most comprehensive route network of any airline in Asia, and they've built this up since 2003, so it's been very rapid. The key thing is, you don't have to backtrack. If you fly with Singapore Airlines, if you fly with Thai, if you fly with Cathay or anything like that, you've got to always come back to a hub. But because they've established these key airlines in these key centres, you can now transit via various different hubs without backtracking. Very attractive to customers, very attractive to other airlines if they go in partnership. So what we're seeing now, and this was unheard of or thought of a few years ago, is our key airlines like Qantas and Jetstar are now starting to work with the likes of AirAsia because they know they can't compete. They're either in bed with them or they're going to struggle because the future growth in this market is something they want to capture. Again, you're going to see this in a few minutes. It's not just our own airlines. Thai Airlines, for example, want to work with Tiger. Tiger is owned by Singapore Airlines. Singapore Airlines want to buy half of China Eastern, 2.3 billion trips last year. That's why they want to buy it. So this whole region of Asia is changing dramatically, very, very quickly. And we need to understand it to make sure that we're able to capitalize on it. So I predict that these kind of commercial alliances, not just with AirAsia, are going to continue. And you're going to be seeing pictures like this for a few years to come. Now, air liberalization. As I said, the region isn't deregulated. It's not like other regions of the world, or some of the other regions of the world, as you'll see. But air liberalization, or freedom of the skies, has the capacity to transform the way business is done, the aviation market, everything, as you'll see. Air liberalization in Asia looks a little bit like this. We've had deregulation in domestic China. We've had deregulation in Japan. So it's no coincidence that you see AirAsia Japan, Jetstar Japan, etc., etc. We've seen deregulation in the Middle East. But the big player, or the big shift, is going to be this. In 2015, the ASEAN region is going to deregulate its airspace so that any of the airlines operating from an ASEAN perspective are going to be able to fly to, from, and within, however they wish. So look at what Fernandez has done and where he's built his airlines. These are the 10 member states of the ASEAN region. Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, etc., etc. He has airlines in the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, etc. I'm damn sure he's going to expand into other regions, Myanmar, etc. So he's capitalized this market already, very quickly. And why? Because it's got a population of 605 million people, 500 million people plus. This is why the likes of Alwyn-Jones and the rest want to play in this space. If you're not in this, you're going to be pushed further and further away. And it's the same for our industry. You cannot ignore this. This is going to happen whether you like it or not. So you need to start thinking, how are you going to capitalize on this? One area that isn't deregulated, of course, is our own region, Australia. And, you know, I believe that Qantas, quite rightly, have, to some degree, have a protective strategy as opposed to a aggressive strategy. I was in the ATEC office a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, and I asked Jen, I saw this piece of news in the Financial Review on the conference table there, and I asked her to scan it for me. This was the announcement of AirAsia X marks its spot in Sydney with the new schedule. On the same page was this: Qantas South African Airlines defend their code share. Down here, we're on code share and on bilateral agreements. And again, it's kind of a protective strategy. It's different for Jetstar and Jetstar Asia, but certainly Qantas are trying to shore up their traffic. Completely different feel though for AirAsia, which is this very progressive, outgoing airline. About 4 years ago, Party did a study with IATA on the economic impact of air service liberalisation. And what we found in this report was, by liberalising just 320 of the world's key routes, which are restricted right now, it would generate economic value comparable to that of the Brazilian economy. It's a brick economy. 320 routes. So what can we expect to happen? Well, let's have a look at an area where it's already happened, Europe. This was the German LCC market in 2002. Factor in deregulation, air liberalisation, and moving forward 2 years. And that's how it looks. This isn't Europe, this is just Germany. So again, can you imagine what's going to happen in Asia with 3 billion people on your doorstep? It's going to be quite scary, actually. But of course, they're going to need places to stay, they're going to need things to do. So when we look at infrastructure and investment, this again is an interesting story. Hotels that are currently in the pipeline. At the moment, there's 2.5 million hotels hotel rooms in the Asia Pacific region. We have new hotel developments, over 1,000 right now. 260,000 rooms currently being built in the pipeline as we speak. 55% of them are in China. What this doesn't factor in, actually, in 2009, this is an interesting statistic. 2009, the Chinese government announced that they were going to build 10,000 new hotels to try and cope with the surge in volume in the domestic market. So the government themselves are building these 3.5-star hotel rooms. They're building 10,000 in 4 years. That's more than 7 hotels opening every single day. This is just in China. It's quite scary. But it's not just China. India, 440 hotels. Southeast Asia, 232 hotels. The Middle East, UAE, 32,000 rooms. Abu Dhabi, 14,000 rooms. Saudi Arabia, 16,000 rooms. Europe, 700 hotels. South America, 140 hotels. It's growing everywhere. What about Australia? Well, this is interesting. This came out of a report from TRA about 18 months ago, maybe a year ago. And it's quite interesting. You can see here the investment cycle over time. This peak here was the bicentennial celebrations, 1988. Here, we see the Olympics. But the report says it would appear that investment in this sector is declining from 2007, indicating that investment in this critical part of tourism value chain is slowing. And this is what they mean, this bit here. It's not just dropping off, it's fallen off the edge of the cliff. And we've got to factor this in because the rest of the world is growing. The rest of the world is expanding, and we seem to be arguing about it and not doing anything to actually to push it forward. We see emerging destinations, competition. We see new incentives, like Myanmar. I was lucky enough to have lunch, sat next to the head of tourism for Myanmar about 2 months ago, and she was telling me of all the tax benefits that you will get by investing in Myanmar right now. New product innovation, backpacking with kids, it's not my idea of fun. You know, I'm sure it's going to appeal to somebody, they're insane. And new emerging markets, this is Chinese backpackers in Mongolia. And of course the backpacker market from China, southwestern China, is exploding. And I was just reading the report. If you look in your kit back and look at the report at the back, that the Chinese youth market exceeded the volume from the UK last year. Quite interesting. You know, they're just coming in and we don't know where they are. Anyway, how do we compete? This is the key. In some traditional markets, you have to say our product offering is considered to be stale. We hear it all the time. However, when we look at new emerging markets, we're completely new. Our product is fresh. It's desirable. Australia is still one of the most desirable destinations on the planet, and we have the capacity to capture that. So things to consider. Our traditional markets will continue to suffer for some time. They will. There's a growing mindset of fear and uncertainty. Until things stabilise, again, this will continue. We see increased taxes and higher oil prices, all adding to the cost. Again, that will increase. But we see rapid increase in affordable air services and connectivity in the Asian market, set to rise at a rapid rate. This is growing new travellers, creating new opportunities for us. It's up to us, though, to think about it and change the way we think. As we know, backpackers often make it up on the run. So I've often thought, why not try and capture them when they're on the run? Why just market in their source markets or market when they get here? And what I'm talking about, we just looked at AirAsia. We just looked at the growth of what they've done over the last few years. Were you aware that Malaysia is now the 9th most visited destination on the planet? Last year they got 27.4 million inbound visitor arrivals. And of course, one of the key sectors and pillars of AirAsia's philosophy is the youth market. So that's just one opportunity that you can consider, and of course there's plenty more out there. So, as George Bush would say, do not misunderestimate, if that's a word, the significance of the impacts of future developments. Got to keep a keen eye on what's going on. I know it's hard when you're busy every day, but unless you know the numbers, you know, keep track of it. Adapt to change. Take what you've got and use it in a different way. Restructure it to capture the new markets or the new opportunity. Be creative. You don't have to do things the way you've always done them. Think about change. Because if you don't, you could end up missing the boat, missing the opportunity. And we all know what happens then. Thank you very much indeed.